Okay, good morning. So in this vlog, I'm going to be doing one of the first major projects on the car. We're going to be replacing the drive belt, the serpentine belt in the front. We're going to be replacing all the coolant hoses, replacing the thermostat, flushing and refilling the coolant system. So let's get started. First, I'll go over all the materials I have, uh, and then we'll get going. Okay, so you can see the mess that is the back of the truck right now, but I'll go over all the materials I have. Yes, I could pull all these out and show it to you a lot better, but it's 6 a.m. and I'm a bit lazy right now. So I've got my uh, coolant system kit straight from Atlantic British. This is the full kit that they offer with all the coolant hoses and a thermostat as well. Um, I won't be using that thermostat though. The thermostat I will be using is my diesel model TD5 thermostat, 180 degree. You can see there, 180F degree thermostat. That's the whole point of this today, is to put in, besides replacing all the hoses and the belt, just for pure maintenance purposes, we want to put in this 180 degree thermostat so that the engine will run colder than the. I consistently see the engine get up to 217. That's usually the highest I see it. Sometimes it'll spike to 221 and then go back to 217. So that's the whole point of what we're doing today, is to put in this new thermostat, which I'm not going to open right now with one hand. Okay. So besides our new hoses, also the new belt is in here, which I ordered from Atlantic British as well. We have our new thermostat. We've got some tools that we're going to need. We got some containers to capture all the coolant, so then we can put it in. You can't see, but in the back I've got some recycling jugs, so we're going to capture all the coolant, capture all the flushed fluids as well, like when I use distilled water and cleaner to flush out the system. Going to capture all that with these pans and put them in those recycling jugs so we can dispose of them properly. So we got gallons of distilled water. I also got some radiator cleaner, a 1 gallon mixing jug. I got my list of instructions listed out here, all my tools, and besides that, just some rags and things of that nature, and that's what we need to get going. So the very first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to pour in a bottle of the radiator cleaner. I'm going to run the car for 10 to 15 minutes. I'm going to let it cool down, and then I'll restart the video. Okay, now that I've waited for the engine to cool, I'm going to start by removing the plastic shroud that's on top of the radiator fan. And then once I remove the shroud, I'm going to remove the fan itself. Alright, and alas, as is natural, we run into our first snag of the day pretty immediately. I did want to remove the radiator fan so that, I would drain the coolant system, the fan would be off, and then I could replace the belt. But what I've just learned, and I should have researched beforehand, is to take the fan off, number one, I need a 36mm wrench, and number two, I need a fan clutch tool to hold the water pulley bolts kind of in place while I use the wrench to knock off the fan nut so I can remove it. So what I'm gonna do, slight change of plan, I'm gonna drain the coolant system. Remember that I just put in a cleaner, ran the car, I let it cool down, and then I'm gonna call up some local O'Reilly's, take my Subaru, go try to rent a 36mm wrench and a fan clutch tool, and hopefully I can find something nearby. It's about like 8 a.m. here. Auto shops should be just opening, so hopefully I can find something that's not rented out. Okay, so let's start draining the coolant system. First thing, make sure I have my proper PPE. I got my gloves, I got my safety glasses. The engine is cold. Absolutely have to make sure that the engine is cooled off. Now I'm gonna slightly open the cap, relieve the excess pressure. Once I feel that the excess pressure has been relieved out, then I will fully unscrew the cap. Okay, so unfortunately the Land Rover D2 does not have a nice, simple drain plug at the bottom of the radiator. They wanted to make it as hard as possible, I guess. So there is a trick that Atlantic British suggests to making the drainage of the coolant system a bit easier than just removing the bottom hose of the radiator and letting it splash everywhere and having it be chaotic. There's a bolt here, I'm not going to show it, but you can look up Atlantic British's coolant hose system replacement video to see it. But near the water pump, there's a bolt down here that I can remove, and that'll drain the coolant system down to the level of that bolt. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to position my oil pan or my oil capture container that I usually use for oil. I'm going to put it under the bottom of the car. I'm going to pull out that bolt and let the system drain out as far as it will with that bolt out. Got my capture basin here. All right, well, apparently I need to remove the fan to get to the drain plug that I was just talking about, to drain out the coolant system. So now I'm running to O'Reilly's to rent out a fan clutch tool and a 36mm wrench so we can remove that fan. All right, thanks to O'Reilly's, I now have what I need. I've got a 36mm wrench and an adjustable fan clutch tool. So I'm going to use these two tools to remove the fan. Alright, so I'm going to get this adjustable tool that holds the water pump pulley. I need to get it onto 2 bolts. Okay, so normally you would remove the fan, and once you remove the fan, you have easy access to the bolt next to the water pump that you can remove to drain out the coolant system, right? So basically you pull out the fan so that you can drain the coolant system. But at this point, basically what's happening is the 3 bolts that are on the water pump pulley, they're in such a, I only need 2 of those bolts to grab onto with this tool, but those 2 bolts are in such a bad position with the way that they just, when I shut off the car, they're in such a bad position. I can't get to them without removing the coolant hoses. So I'm just gonna say screw it. I got a tarp below the car. I got a bunch of drain catch basins below the car. I'm just gonna remove the bottom radiator hose down here below the thermostat. You know, the lower hose below the thermostat that connects to the radiator down here. I'm just gonna take it out and drain it out that way. Because I can't get to, with the hose in the way here, I can't get to the pulleys, and yeah. And I don't want to start the car again because I already have the coolant system cold. So got a bunch of catch basins down there. Hopefully we don't make a huge mess. So here's, you know, back of the radiator thermostat. That's the hose I'm talking about right there that connects to the radiator. I'm just gonna take that out. I got some catch basins below, and we'll just try not to make a mess. And that's why we lay the tarp down. So capturing the coolant after finally removing that hose, detaching it from the bottom of the thermostat. So I'm gonna pour this captured coolant into some recycling jugs so we can take that to the local recycling center. And then I'll just wait for the rest of the system to dry, or to drain out. Okay, now that the coolant is mostly drained out, I'm gonna start removing the hose by compressing the hose clamps, and just gonna start removing hoses. Starting from the top, since these are already drained out, and working my way down. So once I get all the coolant system hoses off, then we'll see if I can remove this fan with the hoses out of the way. All right, so man, took a lot of freaking effort, but finally removed several of the coolant hoses. I have a couple minor ones left. You can see over here. These are the ones I've removed. Removed the top hose, removed the long hose that goes into the radiator all the way around to the expansion tank. Here's the lower hose assembly, which actually was the easiest one to get off, and our thermostat. And this top hose was actually the hardest one to get off, because this one right here, you can see there's a lot of corrosion here, so it was especially difficult to get that one off. Anyway, finally got the fan off as well. Was able to get what I was trying to illustrate before was, I'm not gonna do it, or yeah, there you go. This tool holds 2 of the bolts, as you can see there, and so that just helps you hold it, pull that clockwise, while the 36 millimeter wrench pulled the fan clutch counterclockwise against each other. So anyway, fan's finally off several hours later. Next thing I'm gonna do here is, well, I even got a video now, but I'm gonna note on a diagram how this belt looks, and then I need to take it off. I believe that one right there, I'm not sure, I'll need to check the video, but I basically need to loosen the tensioner so then I can release the belt and take that off. And then once I have the belt off, I'll also undo these 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts on the AC compressor to bring that forward. Remove the shroud as well, but move that forward because there's a couple, you can see there, 1, 2 below my finger, 2 coolant hoses that I need to remove. And I believe that's all the hoses removed. So fan off, belt off, all the hoses off, coolant system is fully drained. Then after that, I'm gonna have some lunch because it's been several hours, and then I am going to refer to the Atlantic British video online. Well, I'm just gonna replace all the coolant hoses, put them right back where they were before, then put the AC compressor back, then put the shroud back, put the belt back, and just make sure everything's in order, and then we'll refill the system, which I'll get to in a little bit. All right, so removing the belt was not too difficult. Just took my 15mm socket and the breaker bar I bought when the oil drain plug was over torqued when I changed the oil. And well, I'm working with one hand, but anyway, you get the idea. Got the socket head on there, gave it a good leverage down to about here, and that released the tensioner, and now the belt is off. Let's take that off. Ooh, wow, great. Just broke that plastic, that's fine. All right, let me get a ratchet and take off some of these bolts, take off the shroud so I can remove the belt. Looks like these bolts are 10mm. All right, ran out of storage before finally got the shroud off. That's how long it took me to freaking get it off. All right, belt finally off. All right, now let's remove those 4 bolts. Don't know how to use a ratchet apparently. Well, it was complete grind for several hours, but I finally gotten all the coolant hoses out, took the bolts out of the AC compressor, and was able to remove it. The hardest one, and it actually took me quite a while because I had to make another trip to the hardware store, my 3rd one today, was this bolt right here, because I don't know what you call these, but connected to the throttle body, these wires, easy enough to pop the wire out and move the nuts to give myself a little more room, but that bolt was right below here, and it was almost impossible to get this out. I had to go buy a new ratchet that was very thin, just so I could pop the bolt off, and then from there just use my fingers to take it out. So that really slowed me down, but compressor's finally off. I was able to remove here's the location for one of the coolant hoses, and then the other one just snakes through right next to it, and then they both connect right there behind the black wire. You see 2 nozzles there, so that's where those connect. All right, so now everything's off. Honestly, here comes the, oh, let me get into focus. Now that everything's off, honestly, I think now is the easiest part, which is just putting everything back together. Taking it off was a pain, took me almost all day, but now I'm just gonna put all the coolant hoses back where they're supposed to. I guess what I'm gonna do is, first I'm gonna put in the coolant hoses that go behind the compressor, put those in first. Once those are in, I'm gonna put the compressor back. Then I'm gonna put the belt back. And then I'm gonna finish putting in the rest of the hoses. At one point I'll put in the fan. Before I put on the top coolant hoses, I'll probably put on the fan then, since I have easy access to the bolts. And yeah, once everything's put together, then the next step will be I'm gonna fill it up with distilled water and a can of radiator cleaner, run that to flush out the system, and then I'll have to drain it. So we'll be back in a moment. Okay, so believe it or not, it's day 2. What I thought was going to be a whole day project is quickly becoming 2 whole days. Yeah, this one is a lot. It's taken literally all the energy I have in my entire weekend. But you know, I said the hard part was getting the hoses off. The easy part was getting the hoses off. Putting them back on was really a challenge, especially the lower hose assembly, getting it into the bottom of the engine. Or there's, anyway, just, yeah, lower hose assembly was difficult, but the rest were difficult too. You would think, you know, they're easy to, even the top ones, they're easy to access, so it won't be too bad, but I don't know, it was rough. But 5 hardware store trips, and about like 16 or so hours later, finally we have all the new coolant hoses on. We got the new 180-degree thermostat in. We got the new belt on. Put the fan back. Put all the shrouds and casings back on. I had to reassemble these. I put the AC compressor back, tightened all the bolts. Yeah, it was really difficult, but got it done. So finally, everything's back in order. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna put in a can of radiator cleaner, and then 3.3 gallons of distilled water. Actually, before I do that, I'm gonna open the bleed screw, which is right here. All right, so I'm gonna undo I'm gonna remove the bleed screw, Phillips head. Remove the bleed screw from the top of the top hose assembly. Okay, here's my bleed screw. Don't lose that. Alright, so now my bleed valve is open. I think you can see there's a hold here holding the long, this is the bleed hose, essentially, this small hose connecting to the expansion tank. I'm gonna release that from its holds here. Just get rid of this. Okay, release that. Okay. Okay, that's loose enough. Now what I need to do is I need to raise the expansion tank about 8 inches. Yeah, 8 inches. Okay, release that. Take that out. Okay, 8 inches is roughly here. I actually have this box. I'm wondering if it'll... That is probably close enough. It's probably close enough. All right, so I'm gonna get my can of radiator cleaner, and then I'm gonna get 3.3 gallons of distilled water. Funnel. Using liquid moly radiator cleaner. I already used 1 can when I put it into the existing coolant system, ran the car, drained it out. Apparently I don't know how to open a child safety. Okay, finally got that open. I'm gonna put the battery cover back on just so I don't spill any water on the battery accidentally. Okay. Doesn't need to be perfect, so I'm just trying to... Doesn't need to be perfect, I'm just trying to cover it up right now. Alright. Just thinking through if there's anything else I have to do, or making sure all the hoses are connected. Alright, here goes. Okay, there's a can. Okay, gallon number 1. So what we're doing here, of course, distilled water, not regular water. And as the system starts filling up, it'll push all the air out of the bleed valve. It started going out the relief vent in the expansion tank. I filled it too high or too quickly. But so all the distilled water is going into the system right now. We need to see a steady stream of fluid with no air bubbles coming out of the bleed valve for, I don't know, some people say 1 to 2 minutes. I was probably just gonna wait 30 seconds. Well, maybe I'll just wait a minute in case there's any air pockets hidden that are coming out. But anyway, that's 1 gallon. Let's put in the second gallon. Gallon number 2. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we got water coming out. And we're still not through the second gallon, and I'm already seeing a steady stream. Let's just finish the second gallon. Alright, I'm gonna time it. If we get to a minute without any air bubbles in the stream that's coming out, I'm just gonna call it, even though I've only poured in 2 gallons. I've heard that sometimes people try to pour in 3.3 and they don't get the whole amount. And actually, when I drained the coolant system initially, I only drained maybe like 2 to 2.5 gallons, not 3.3. So maybe 2 gallons was enough. So I'm gonna time it and see how long we get the steady stream. Okay, it's been over a minute and 30 seconds. It's been over a minute and 30 seconds, no air bubbles, so I'm just gonna put the bleed screw back on. I only put in 2 gallons, but that must have been enough. Okay, bleed screw is on. Now we're gonna wait to see what level we come to in the expansion tank and see if we need to add a little bit more just to get to the max fill line. Here, first we'll put the tank back in. I think it blurped. I think the reservoir tank blurped a little bit, but now I think it's done. Okay, tank's back in. See the level. You can Looks like we can add a little bit more. Okay, let's pour a little bit more in here. Just get it to the max fill line. Alright. Okay, well, it's been so long since I've started this car or made progress beyond the coolant hoses that I can't believe we're finally at this step. It took me a while to realize it, but we're finally ready to start the car again. So I'll start the car, run it for 10 to 15 minutes. I'm gonna monitor the engine temp very closely, make sure it doesn't go above like 210, 215, and make sure the heater is on and on full blast, so everything's cycling through the heater as well. And then I'll give it about an hour to cool down again. In that hour, I'll go back to O'Reilly's to return the tools I rented, grab some lunch, and yeah, be back in like an hour, 15 minutes, including the car runtime. So see you in an hour and 15. Okay, in case this thing blows up on me, at least I can get it on video. I've never taken the fan off, put it back on, taken all the hoses off, put them back on, AC compressor off, put it back on. So let's see if it blows up. Here we go. Alright, so just finished running her for 15 minutes, had the heater on at full blast. The hottest she got up to was 167 degrees. And when we come back, we'll drain her out, refill her one more time, and do a flush with distilled water one more time before finally putting in the new coolant. Alright, so I took apart the top hose assembly, the lower hose assembly, the thermostat, and the bottom hose from the radiator to drain out the system once it had cooled down. Now I've got my bleed valve open again. Got my expansion tank raised 8 inches, and I'm about to refill one more time for another flush cycle, this time with just DI water and nothing else. I'm glad that I'm doing this twice because actually when I drained the system just now, there were still traces of the old coolant. Nice. Take two. There were still traces of the old coolant once I drained the system again, so yeah, glad we're doing when I was taking the hoses apart again after spending hours upon hours my whole weekend taking them, you know, I took them apart before and then I was taking them apart again. I was questioning my life choices and why I bought this car and why I was flushing it so many times. Let's just friggin' put in the new coolant. But when I saw the old coolant was still in what was drained out, that, you know, I'm glad that we're flushing it one more time with DI water, just so we can get all traces of the old coolant out, because the new coolant is a different type than what the previous owner had. So anyway, here we go. System is completely drained, hoses are reconnected, bleed valve's open. I'm going to put in my first gallon of DI water. Alright, so I've done the math and we are 24 hours into this journey.
literally from the moment I started doing this to now, it's been 24 hours worth of work, 6 or 7 hardware store trips, I've lost count, and we're almost there. So that's what happens when you get somebody who's never worked on cars before working on cars. So it's been very painful. This was not like changing the oil. This was a process for sure. Between removing all the hoses, putting the hoses back on, and figuring out where all the hoses are, taking off the compressor, the fan, the shrouds, the throttle body, it's been a lot. But we are finally at the part where we're gonna we're done with flushing. Now we're gonna fill the system one more time with our actual coolant. And yeah, God help us, there's no problems, because then we'll be done. I want to make a quick note about what coolant I'm using. So the previous owner had a Prestone antifreeze and coolant in here. I think it was the green stuff, so to speak. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that, but just to limit as much risk as possible, because I'm just conservative in general. Like, I probably could have just kept with the Prestone. I'm sure it's just fine, but instead I ended up getting the actual OEM coolant from Land Rover. This is the XLC coolant. This has OAT technology. I forget what the OAT stands for, but basically this coolant is better for the environment. Land Rover used propylene glycol until I believe around the 90s, and then they switched over to this XLC coolant, which is much better for the environment, and it's actually not, doesn't taste sweet, and it's not poisonous to animals, so that's all good stuff. And then, I mean, it's just the OEM coolant, so really taking no risks here using this coolant. It's supposed to be, you know, I have OEM hoses, I have OEM coolant, just trying to, you know, limit risk as much as possible. Okay, let's get filmed. From what I've seen on the internet, supposedly the Land Rover Discovery 2 takes 3.3 gallons in the coolant system. I've gotten nowhere near 3.3 gallons. Both times I filled the system, I put in 2 gallons of distilled water. I've seen online that some people aren't able to get 3.3 gallons. Apparently, I guess, you know, there's always a little bit of coolant trapped in the system, but hopefully, since I've already flushed it out twice with DI water, and the last time I drained it just now, I didn't see really much of any traces of the old coolant, so there should be none of the old coolant left in the system. There might still be some DI water in here, but at worst case, I'm just diluting the coolant a little bit. So anyway, I know I need about 2 gallons to fill the system. This is 1 gallon right here of the coolant. I need to dilute it with another gallon of DI water, so pretty easy peasy. Once again, wait until I've been doing like about a minute and a half of steady stream out of the bleed valve, and then been closing it, and that's usually been about right. So okay, it's been 2 minutes and I've seen a steady stream of fluid, so I'm going to put on my cap. The bleed valve cap. Bleed valve screw. I don't know. after over 24 hours of work. We're gonna turn her on with the new coolant, run her for 15 minutes, monitor the temperature. I'm not gonna use the heater because I wanna see how hot she actually gets. And let's hope she doesn't blow up on us. Alright, so after running her for 15 minutes, her maximum temperature was 206 degrees. I don't know if I'd call this a success. You know, was I successful in changing all the hoses and putting in a 180 degree thermostat? Yes, I was successful. Put in new coolant. And looks like I'll need to put in some more. Level looks a little low, so I'll do that tomorrow, but once she cools down. So was this a success? Well, we did it, so I guess it's a success, but the car still got up to 206 degrees. Now granted, that was while sitting idle and for 15 minutes and without the heater on. So maybe even with a 180 degree thermostat, that's reasonable. Like to take her out for a few drives, see kind of what the temperature is after a few drives, because I've gotten used to what temperature she hits as she drives. So I want to see if I notice any difference. But for now, I'm gonna end the vlog here because I'm really tired. Here's some sizzling. I think there's a very tiny leak in one of these hoses behind the AC compressor. But I have access to the screw hoses, so hopefully I can just tighten that up and get rid of that. But other than that, we're done. I'm tired. I'm ready to go home. We did it, and let's just see how it goes. All right, thank you.
Alright, so that is in fact not the end of the video. So here's what happened. I started trying to drive Donna home. And by now, by watching the Ultra Gauge over all this time, I kind of know just by muscle memory what temperatures she hits and when. And she was doing just fine. It was a heavy traffic day, and I noticed, you know, as I'm waiting to get on the highway, stuck in traffic, she starts creeping up in the temperature a bit faster than she normally would. You know, I saw, you know, 190, 195, 200, and I already knew, like, you know, she's climbing a bit faster than she normally does. Get on the on-ramp and, you know, it takes some time. This literally a hill, this on-ramp that I'm talking about, waiting to get on. I'm still stuck in traffic. I'm not moving, and she's already creeping up to 215, 217. And yeah, so I knew she was not going to make it. Turned on the heater, full blast. That definitely helped. Gave me about, you know, took her down about 5-10 degrees. I drove back to where I had it before and left it there. And the hottest she got was 221, but that was with the heater on full blast. So yeah, almost lost her completely, but made it back. So what went wrong? Well, there must be air in the system. That was my first thought, was that there's air in the system. That's, you know, the most likely culprit. One thing I was wondering, the second thing I thought it might be was maybe if the coolant and the water hadn't mixed well enough, because I poured one and then the other. But I did run the car for 15 minutes after filling it, so that should have mixed the fluids enough. So the concentration should be fine, and I roughly poured a gallon of water and a gallon of coolant. So the concentration shouldn't be an issue. There should be enough water, enough coolant. I think ultimately there must be air in the system. And after doing a little research and rewatching my videos from the other day, I did pinpoint what I believe is wrong. And that is that after all that, hours upon hours of work, I lost concentration at the last step. Literally the last step, I lost concentration. And while I had been running the heater for previous flush and fill cycles, for this final fill cycle, I did not run the heater after filling it. So, issue with this is that there might be air trapped in the heater core, and I did not circulate that out and have it, come out of the system through the bleed valve that's always open at the top of the expansion tank. So I believe that is what the issue was. I'm gonna mix a 1/4 gallon of coolant, mix a 1/4 gallon of water. I'm gonna open my bleeder valve, raise the expansion tank once again, pour in that 1/2 gallon of mixture. I'm gonna let it bleed out of the system, make sure there's no air bubbles in the stream that's coming out. And then I'm gonna run her for, once I put everything back and close the cap and everything, make sure the level is good. I'm gonna run her for 15 minutes, but this time with the heater on. And hopefully that solves the issue. We'll see. I'm gonna re-bleed her now. It's early in the morning. Then I'm gonna go to work, and after work try to drive her home again, and we'll see how it goes. But this is not a success just yet. All right, rebled the coolant system, ran the car for 15 minutes again with the heater on high, fan on low, and the hottest the car got up to was 186 degrees. It sounds like, based on the limited research I've done, even with the 180 degree thermostat reaching temperatures between 195 and 205 sitting in idle traffic is normal. All the 180 degree thermostat is doing is opening at a lower temperature than the stock thermostat. So let's see how this afternoon's traffic goes, and if I need to come off the highway again to save it from overheating, or if I make it home. All right, we're driving home. Moment of truth. Let's see if we make it.
We did not make it.